Brilliant. Hello everyone, Patricia Worby, Alchemy Therapies here, and I'm delighted to once again welcome my colleague and friend Jane Lumley for another of our ongoing conversations on radical healing. And today we haven't even got a proper title for this one, but we wanted to discuss the nature of transition from a stuck, suffering place to healing and how one engenders that. Because we don't want it to sound glib that you can just make a decision to get better and it miraculously happens. We know in reality that it is difficult, particularly if you've got the mindset of I'm hopeless and I'm stuck, which I know we've both suffered, haven't we, Jane? We've both been in that place of being completely stuck and thinking that nothing can be done. And I know that, you know, in different ways, we've both worked our way to where we currently are. And I'd like to say that I feel more hopeful now than I've ever done in my entire life. That's not to say that I've solved it all and I'm enlightened and I have all the answers, because I don't. But I know that because of my suffering, because of where I've been in my life and you know, having been through various traumas and operations and things like that, that I have come to a new understanding actually of what healing and health really is. And it is an active process, and I know you would agree with that. So do you want to just give me your view on what this transition, how one begins that process?
Yeah, I think it's a lifelong thing for a start, and I certainly I think you'll have come across it with many clients too. That idea of, oh well, now I've solved it, everything will be fine. And of course, you know, it isn't. That isn't how life works. Mm-hmm. I also think that for me, I can see the progression, my own progression through my life to now, and learning more, understanding more, and really in reality, it's about understanding more of myself. So as I've learned more about the outside world and learned more science and discovered the research and so on, I've been more and more empowered to be me. And I think that's essential, that it's not, you know, we can look for the answers outside us and there's so much information that we could carry on looking forever. What we do need to do, and I've had to learn, like everyone, the hard way by doing it. We can't just learn it from books. We have to learn by putting it into practice ourselves. And the hardest time to do that is when you're feeling very low, very ill, very tired, miserable, or whatever it is. You know, and if you're in the throes of that, then, you know, you can have all these wonderful ideas, but unless you can bring them inside yourself and look at you quite objectively as well as subjectively and accept who you are. So that idea of loving who you are, I remember years ago, I actually found that really difficult. I found the idea of saying, well, I love myself. I thought, well, what do they mean? What on earth does that mean? Mm-hmm. And I helped people with it over the years and they seem to get it. But I really felt I'd got it. And it's taken me all these years to really understand and embrace who I am. Mm-hmm. Do you know, I'll tell you a funny story. I've always had chubby knees. Yeah, when I was a kid, my sisters and brothers who were either side of me, two either side, my younger sisters and older brothers, they were all tall and thin. And I was the little short one. And my grandmother even at one point had us lined up and said, oh, you're all growing and Jane's growing outwards, you know, and I was called, she called me plain Jane and no nonsense as well. And these things stick, don't they? But yeah. I can remember, once walking down the stairs, and I was very fit and active and doing lots of running and things. And my mum and dad saying I had footballer's legs. And I was quite young, I was probably about 10. And I was quite proud of it because that sounded better than having chubby legs. You know, having footballs meant I had a bit more power about me. But I never wanted to wear shorts or short skirts. Every now and then in my life, I have done because I've gone thin. And in fact, each time I ever went that thin was when I'd been quite ill.
Right.
You know, that's how my body got so thin. And I was then okay about my legs. And my daughter, up until a year or so ago, was still saying to me, Mum, put your shorts on. I said, well, yeah, I'd rather wear them just below the knee. I just feel more comfortable. I don't need to show my chubby legs. And the reason I'm telling you this is because when I had my bad fall last year, and I discovered after that, early this year, that I had osteoporosis of the spine, and the same week I discovered that I had macular degeneration developing in my eyes to quite a serious level. And it was a blow. It was a real shock, and I did spiral a bit downhill at that point, understandably. What have I missed? How have I got this? How has it got this far without me doing anything about it? You know, all those things we come up with, all those questions about ourselves. But the reason I tell you that is that the reality for me was, we have a choice at that point. And this is what so many people describe, don't they? When they have a serious illness or an event happens in their lives that feels out of their control, and they have to cope, they have to live. When we choose to live, we don't really know what that means, but we know we're going to go forward. We're not giving in. And human beings are so strong. We are incredibly powerful in this way. We want to survive. We have a very powerful survival mechanism, don't we? So we decide we want to survive. And that's what happened with me. I knew I had to find out what was going on, what was happening in my body that had allowed this to happen, because I was eating a healthy diet and lots of exercise, etc., etc. But the reason I'm telling you the shorts story is that I bought shorts last week, organic, lovely ones from a company called Howie's, who we all love in my family because they sell organic cotton, which is what we should all be buying. And they had some, and I got these shorts, and they fitted perfectly. And I suddenly realised that the whole idea of not showing my chubby knees had gone completely. It was irrelevant now. And it's important, this, because I didn't work on that. I didn't do anything about that. I didn't try and get myself to do it, or get rid of some old beliefs about my legs, or, you know, how I looked, or anything. I just realised that this decision that I made a few months ago to really get to the bottom of things and to take back my own control, to take responsibility, 100% responsibility for who I am and what's happening to me. It doesn't happen from outside, it does happen from inside. It suddenly, putting on a pair of shorts, it just felt like an obvious thing to do, and I wandered off into town in my shorts without a second thought.
Fantastic.
It's quite an important thing, isn't it? Because we realise that by making one small decision and then another small decision, we are changing. We're embracing not just what's happening to us. I haven't suddenly got a strong back.
No.
I haven't suddenly been able to decide myself into having strong bones. Now I'm convinced I will have strong bones. It'll take some time for my body to redress the balance and to do what it needs to do. And now, having the right help, I've discovered that my healthy diet wasn't as healthy as I hoped, because I wasn't absorbing quite a lot of it. And so I'm having to change all of that as well. And that's a good thing, really good thing to do. So two things come out of that for me. One is I'm taking 100% responsibility. I also am very grateful for the fact that I was able to go and have a bone scan. Not that I'm suggesting you all have lots of them, because they're actually using X-ray, which I don't really want to be doing. But I found out something very, very important from that. And by going to my wonderful optician up in Penrith, who has amazing equipment, like hospital type equipment, and has been watching my eyes for years, those photographs and showing me what's now happening with my eyes was a wake-up call too. And without that, I would be sailing along thinking, well, I can see fine, so why would I be worried about it? So now I'm able to take action. And so I think it's really important, especially after our last talk, that we really acknowledge that science has moved on wonderfully. We can take advantage of some of this diagnostic equipment, because it's very important for us all. Because we don't always know, because we're whizzing along in our lives doing all these busy life things. We don't realise. I didn't know my back was weak. How could I know? It was working okay. So now I can now be quite consciously aware of wanting a strong back. What do I need to do, body, to develop the right lifestyle, the right food, take the right food? I'm now going to the gym regularly, which I've never been a particularly keen gym person, but I'm so grateful to be using in the gym that keep my back still, so I can still do muscle exercise that are going to help, because the resistance work. And I'm happy with that. That is exciting. So that I've gone from really being incredibly low and helpless to I'm not saying I've solved it, because I know I haven't. We've got to do steps as we go along the way, haven't we? but I feel better now about me as a person. A lot of my clients, if they see this, who I've worked with for 30 years, will think, my gosh, I thought she was always switched on. Well, you know, we're quite good at being switched on when we need to be, aren't we?
Yeah.
And be able to be understanding and apply our knowledge.
Yeah.
But our own self, what's going on inside us, that's very different.
Yeah, it's very different. Yeah. No.
We need help often.
Yeah, we all do. We all do. No, you've raised a lot of important points there. So, one that I wanted to mention actually was, for me, admitting that I needed help was, you know, the big barrier. Okay, because, and I think some of us who are in healing professions, we've come through our own challenges, and we find it really difficult to accept that we can't do it ourselves, because of course we're helping other people, and why shouldn't we be able to do it ourselves? But the problem is, our own internal unconscious process is a mystery to most of us. You know, we don't always know what's going on until we do the work, or we get help to have a second view of what's happening. And I know my own wake-up call, I've talked about that before, but when I got chronic fatigue, but I remember as part of my recovery, I picked up the Louise Hay You Can Heal Your Life book, which was one of the first to ever talk about these kind of mind-body interactions. And the exercise where you're supposed to go and tell your reflection in the mirror that you love, I love me, you know, I love you, you say it to your reflection. And thinking that I'd manage that really easily and couldn't, you know, actually felt terrible when I said to myself, that's when I knew, there's an issue here, because I thought I did love myself because I was successful, because I had achieved stuff in life, because I had been a dynamic person who didn't slack. You know, I was not a slacker. But what I hadn't realized was that there's a deeper part of me that wasn't in connection with who I really am, you know, what I'm here to be, which isn't to be an office worker, funnily enough. It's to help other people gain an understanding of who they really are as well, and help guide them through my experience of not knowing, you know, because the biggest uncertainty we have is when we don't know what we want in life, who we are. And we have these negative messages like you had, you know, that you had chubby knees. I think mine was that I'm different. That was my message. Because when I was young, I grew up and I had really, really bright ginger hair, and that was rare then, and I used to get bullied for it, and children particularly, pointing and laughing at me. And so my internal dynamic was I'm different and I don't belong. That was my belief system. And so it was really tough when I got ill, because if I don't belong, how am I going to engage help? Because I don't fit anyway. I'm wrong. I'm somehow outside of this world that I live in. So for me, it was about learning to love myself at a deep level. And it's not a conscious decision in the sense of, right, okay, I love myself. And now that's fine. I've sorted that. It's about finding all the places where you are blocked from appreciation, from gratitude, from, an assessment of who you are in this life. And for me, it was about, okay, I haven't got the best knees either, you know. And, you know, I'm never going to be a glamour puss like a lot of the, you know, women you see all made up on the internet, you know, in a reality TV. I'm never going to be that kind of woman. But that doesn't mean I can't be fulfilled. I can't be wholehearted in my self-love. You know, I am who I am, and my journey is to find out who's the best expression of me in this life. And I think that is the process I've come from. And not knowing that is suffering for me. It's the definition of suffering, not knowing who you really are and how to engage to find out.
Oh, absolutely. And I think what we all discover is that not knowing and the suffering that causes can actually, in fact, almost automatically causes very real suffering in our everyday lives. So what we're choosing because we don't know who we are. And just a quick story from me is that, you know, I've been practicing. I was a teacher. I taught at university. I taught at school, psychology. Been a practitioner for many, many years, since the 90s. And we've, you know, done thousands of client hours. And a few years ago, with the breakup of a partnership and various different things that were happening at the time, I was quite ill too. I hadn't discovered at that point how severely magnesium deficient I was, which became was quite an important answer in my quest for information about myself, because I was collapsing and feeling really, really poorly then. My heart wasn't behaving properly, and which was very frightening. I used to go to bed sometimes thinking, what if I just don't wake up? What will happen with my kids? What will all my kids think? Should I give them a ring now? And it was, my heart was hurting and beating very strangely, and no real help. They didn't know what to do with me in terms of medicine. And in fact, to cut a long story short, I did actually really improve my heart, I mean, to the point of having no symptoms by taking enough magnesium. So that was a very important thing. But at that time, I gave up my business as a practitioner. The partner I was with at the time wanted me to write my books and knew that I loved to write, and said, look, he would help me to live and I could just do that. And then, of course, I decided it wasn't the right way to live, and we weren't right for each other, and we split up, which was me back to square one in terms of now I don't have my business anymore, and I'm not going to be able to live just by sitting writing my books. So I need to be out and about living in the world, and I took a job which I was amazed to get. I'd been in bed for nearly 5 months, so I'd been in the house at least for nearly 5 months by that point, and I got a job on the boats on Ullswater up in the Lake District. And my kids said, Mum, you haven't even had a whole day outside the house. How are you going to work on a boat? And I said, well, I do a week and I can't manage anymore. That's it. I'll stop again. I'll just apologise. But I got the job and off I went crewing on the boat.
Gosh.
I absolutely loved it. It was just such a delight to be told what to do. To not have to be the one in charge anymore of my own business, to not have to think about my accounts and all that business side that I used to say I couldn't do. That was always stressful. And, you know, finding more clients and telling the world who I was and advertising and all that stuff. I'd moved to somewhere new, so it was no longer working by word of mouth as it had done for many, many years before that. Anyway, cut a very long story short, I really loved being on the boats for a while. It was great stuff. And they said, oh, you've got a bit of a knack when you drive the boat, because every crew member has to be able to take the wheel just in case of an emergency with the skipper. And did I want to train as a skipper? There were no female skippers on the boats there. And I said, yes, why not? This is quite an exciting thought. And anyway, let's move to the end of that time. So 3 seasons of doing that, getting to the point of about to pass my skipper's license. And that year, I knew that I was really, really struggling. I had several injuries during that time, quite serious injuries. So I badly hurt my ankle twice within a year of each other. I cracked ribs. I hurt my hand very badly. My foot was so painful that I couldn't stand on both legs anymore. So the year that it all came to an end, from about April that year, I was standing on one foot to drive the boats because the pain in my right foot was horrendous. And we assumed because of an artificial toe joint that I have, the silicone that I was reacting to, and assumed that's what it was. It was inflammation, and the prognosis was really horrendous. It's having it all taken out and not being able to walk for a long, long time. So I couldn't face that. Didn't want to even look at my foot. But anyway, I couldn't really drive boats terribly well standing on one leg, and I couldn't tell anyone that I was in pain, because how can you carry on training to be a skipper on a boat, being in charge, if you say you're in such awful pain, you haven't stand on one leg? And so I had to be strong and powerful, and I'm small. I'm only 5'2". So there I am, driving these enormous boats. It was a fight for me to be able to open one of the gates on the boats, the metal sliding gates on the boats. It was a struggle for me to refuel the boat, just to actually pull out the fuel hose long enough to then... Sometimes it was actually frightening for me to try and get on the boat when the waves were high and so on. So the reason I tell you the story is that I was absolutely a fish out of water. I really wanted to do it. I was using my willpower all the time. I was determined that I could do it. I could show that not only a woman, but a small woman who was 58, she could do it.
Wow.
57 as I was then, you know, and I was so determined to show the whole world that this is possible to do, and that, you know, but in fact, the reality was underneath all of that I'd spent a lifetime doing what I'm here to do, which up to that point, which was teaching, helping people to understand themselves, to put into common usage on normal language, the psychology studies that I was reading about, to help people to understand that they could make changes. And that had been my joy for all those years. And I thought I could give all that up. And working on the boat seemed like a great idea. But in fact, all I was seeing was the negativity of some of the people I was working with, the difficult issues people were living with, the problems within the area, there's different questions around tourism, all those issues that I would have spent time in the past helping to solve. And I wasn't there to solve them. I wasn't there to help with any of them. I was there to do a particular job. Yeah. And that part of me that expresses the real me was just being squashed and lost and put away in a corner somewhere by myself, not by anyone else. And in the end, I had to stop. And in fact, I stopped because I had such terrible pain. I had to have foot surgery. And at that point, though, when I saw my GP, she was quite right. She upset me because she said, "You've got anxiety and depression. You need some treatment." And I said, "No, I have not. I'm just in a lot of pain." But of course, which was true. But I was walking down the path from my house regularly at that point, up in the mountains where I lived with my little dog, and I was walking along wondering why I was in the world at all. Okay. And so low, thinking, I'm in this beautiful place. Why can't I bring back the smiles I used to have? And that is a really hard place to be. But the recognition that comes from that is that I wasn't doing what I was here to do. I wasn't using the right things for me. And it took quite a long time after that to rediscover myself, to start to pick up the pieces of me that I'd hidden away and actually develop the confidence to be who I actually am, that I'm here on the planet to be. No one else can be me. There's only me who can. So, and that's the big take home from all of this, isn't it? There's, every single person out there in the world, whether they're watching this or listening to this or not, every single person is their own special, unique self. And they are needed in the world. Not only by the people they know, but just needed generally for what they're bringing to the world. And when we hide ourselves and we don't let ourselves be that person, there's just nobody there being this person. So Jane Lumley disappeared for a while, or at least the real essence of her just wasn't available to the world. So realization of that not for me, it's not a divine purpose. It's not how I think about it. I'm a very practical, sort of pragmatic person. But there is only me who can be me. So it's my job. It's my job and my responsibility to be this best me that I can be and grow into even more of the me that I know and the bits of me I don't even know yet, and grow into her through my whole life.
I love that. I love that. So what you're describing is this quest for authenticity, which is a personal journey. Okay, we all come into this world, an individual. We have an individual view and we have experiences that are unique to us. And so, but the point I think I wanted to make is that sometimes we don't learn through making all the right decisions. We wish we did, but we learn through making ones that are not quite right. Whether that's relationships, jobs, other decisions that we make in life. And I know for me, the reason I got ill, I think in the first place, was because my decisions were based on an image of me, of how I should be, rather than the real me, which is very deeply sensitive, very intuitive, actually quite, I dare say this, the feminine energy. But as you can see, I'm not a particularly girly, I don't wear pink and, loads of makeup. So, going through puberty particularly, but growing up thinking I'm different, I'm not like the other girls, and not knowing how to express myself authentically, how to live the best life for me. And of course, that's not something anyone else can teach you. Other people will guide you, and some of the experiences and the relationships we have do teach us that. And for me, I think what I bring to bear with my clients is this idea of this quest for finding out who you really are is not something that anyone else can do. It's an inside job, okay? But it does need you to tune in with your personal guidance system. And what that is your emotional life. It's the emotions that you feel on a daily basis. And some people have shut that down. I think I did, because it was unacceptable. It didn't fit my model of myself as supremely confident, pushing, A-type, driven, you know, somebody like that. And my feminine energy wants me to stop and just be and listen to my body and notice when things are off. You know, so when you were on the boats, it's a bit like when I was doing my university job, you know, it was all right. It was okay. It taught me stuff. I wouldn't have not gone through that experience, but at the end of the day, it wasn't what I'm here to do. And giving it up was the step to, you know, to change my life and become more in line with who I really am. This alignment with the true self, which, you know, you can't know that ahead of time, you know, unfortunately. You have to go through these difficult experiences to learn when you're out of alignment and notice that and work with that. And that's what I help when I'm working with people. I help them to notice when they're out of alignment and give them tools to help them lean into the situation they're in, however dire it is, however chronically ill they are, and to really learn that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and the light is belief and trust in your wholeness. Like you said, you're so excited. You used two words that really struck me. I'm really excited and I'm so grateful. And gratitude and joy are two of the most profound emotions that help put the body into a state of healing. And so here we are, having had all that happen to us and yet still believing in ourselves as whole people. I do want to just touch on the feminine angle, because, you know, females in our culture are really not celebrated. The feminine energy is not celebrated. And a lot of women do feel a fish out of water, like you said, you know, a 5'2" woman. I'm not much taller. Trying to do a masculine thing. Well, you know, the whole reason I went into science in the first place was because a teacher at school said to me, girls don't do science. I remember the day. Girls don't do science. So my A-type brain said, this girl does, you know, without realizing that that might have consequences for me, because to fit in science, the actual practical day-to-day activity of working within the scientific field means you have to suppress your female energy and your feminine intuition, because it's not regarded as the scientific way. So actually, everything has a consequence, doesn't it? You know, those decisions we make.
It does, and I think that's to be embraced as well. And it's not always easy to do that, is it? No. Especially at the time. But one of the things you talked about, you know, working with clients, and it happens all the time, I find, is that most of us seem to need to find what we don't want before we find out what we do want. And I don't just mean once either. I don't mean that once we know what we don't want, everything's fine, we can work out what we do want. I mean again and again and again, if it's tiny things. So that once we know what we don't want, the real thing to do is to take the next step then. So we now know we don't want this, that doesn't fit for us. And like you said, the emotional self is what tells us. So the emotions we feel are the ones that are saying, actually, if I feel uncomfortable or distressed or a little bit of tension or a churned up feeling or a bit heavy, all those different words we use, we're describing feelings, then we're getting in touch with the emotions we have. And those emotions, I often used to say to people years ago, put your hand where it is and say, do I want this? Do I want this one? So if you're feeling heavy, the vast majority of people, although everyone has the choice to say yes, but most people will say, no, actually, I don't want to feel heavy. So we can work out, okay, so if you don't want that, what do you want? And to take that step, it's a logical movement forward. So what do you want? And the easiest way to do it through those feelings is to say, okay, then if I don't want to feel heavy, what do I want? Well, maybe I want to feel light. Maybe I just want to feel lighter. And already you've made a step forward into yourself, because you're already making a choice. You're already saying, that doesn't feel so good, this feels better. And those little steps, I think, that we're doing, if we're doing those on a daily basis, an hourly or a minute by minute basis, not that I'm saying we're living staring at our own navels, but the fact that we notice those things, that changes everything.
It does.
Because we're more aware of what our world around us is offering us, and we're much more likely to be able to see the opportunities to go into a slightly different surrounding, or a different environment, or a different relationship, or a different job, because we see them. We don't see them if we're stuck in the, I know what I don't want, but I'm stuck in what I don't want. It's all very well, but we have to take the next step. And that's where joy starts to come, because we start realizing, I've made a choice here. And we might another week do the same, say, oh yeah, I don't want this either, or I've agreed to go and do something, and actually I totally didn't want to do that. You know, we start recognizing more and more, but I do believe it comes from knowing what we don't want. Yeah,
it's a sad thing that we have to learn through suffering, but I think we learn the best that way. And as long as we can transform it, transmute it into a learning, and I know that's going to sound a bit glib when you know, if your suffering is really bad, like you've had a breakup, you know, heartbreak, loss, bereavement, illness, are all very difficult things to live through. But I know that you and I, you know, we're talking from personal experience, not just from, you know, reading and learning in a sort of abstract way. Well, you know, learn through joy, you know. Well, when you're in the really bad times, this is hard. It's not easy, but it is simple. It is about actually engaging, as you said, becoming aware. I think that's number one, is becoming aware of what your body is actually telling you via the emotions that you may have been suppressing for years, as I was, because it didn't fit. It didn't fit that I could feel things and be emotional. You know, I'd got this construct, which was my mask, which says, I'm fine. And it looked like that as well. It was pretty grim, you know, I'm fine, don't ask me. And I remember I used to get people in the street, just random strangers would often come up to me and say, cheer up, love, it might never happen. So, you know, and I thought, well, I don't know what you mean. I'm fine. Do I look grim? Well, clearly I did. Because I'd had this feeling that I have to keep going at all costs. And of course, that's unsustainable. So I think really to sum up, what we're saying is change is possible. It's profound. It requires inner work. It's not something you can just flick a switch and make a decision to do, and that's fine, and everything then flows. And you may have to repeat the same experience before you really, really get it, okay? Because I know we both have that in our lives, where we've had certain things like accidents. For me, you know, I had multiple accidents before I finally got where I wasn't present in my life. You know, what was I doing that was allowing me to not be aware enough to avoid these situations that were coming to me thick and fast? So healing is powerful, positive, and it requires some guidance, inner guidance initially, but sometimes external to that, to help guide you. So finding someone who's, you know, got that ability to help guide you is really, really important. And particularly, I think, for any practitioners out there who might be listening, because we're both practitioners and we know how hard we are on ourselves. We're worse than the average person, because we say, I should be able to figure this out for myself. And the fact that I haven't means I'm a failure. And I've had to ditch that idea. So I now know, yep, I can be great for other people, but when I'm really suffering, I need other people to, you know, guidance as well. And I'm not afraid to do that anymore. I reach out before it gets that bad, you know. So I'm using a preventative idea rather than waiting for my body or my mind to collapse. And so...
And that is actually embracing the new model that we were talking about last time, and we're going to talk more about this. What does this new model mean? Because in a sense, that's living the new model, which is a model of health, which is noticing, choosing, being aware, making decisions based on what's happened to us and how we feel, and honouring that feeling, being able to share it with people and ask for help with it when we don't know what to do with it. And certainly that's been my greatest joy, is finding people that are able to help me, because I think we probably are harder to help too, because we assume that we know so much information, we've helped so many people get well, why can't we do it? And it's really joyful to be able to sometimes say, okay, help me with this. You know,
like you said,
I'm actually fine, but I can feel these things going on. I'm not so happy about what I'm doing with that, or the choices I'm making, or I don't know where to go, you know. And like you say, to be doing that as we go along. I mean, my dream would be that we offer this sort of help to people from childhood onwards, that it's just part of life, that we would just make this a normal part of being. And then some people would say that it used to be, when you had your auntie living down the road.
You had next
door, who would listen to you, and just in telling that person how upset you feel about a friend at school who's ignored you today, or whatever it is, who might say, oh well, maybe she's just, you know, having an off day, and it's maybe not all about you. Just being able to share those things, we used to do more of. I don't think it was probably this idyllic world that people would like to make out that it was, because a lot of issues were there, you know. Childhood abuse and horrible things going on in families was absolutely rife. So it's not as if, you know, it was a perfect world, but we don't have that same ability, you know, availability of family now. Who, maybe the aunt who might listen to us, or the uncle. And I think it's important to reach out and find someone who does. And that brings me to something I'd love to talk about another time, Patricia, because with you about, because it's often about who we're with as well. So if we are spending time with people who actually are okay with us living what we don't want, and we are supporting them to live what they don't want, then in fact it's almost like a sort of insidious relationship where we're never going to change, because it's actually more safe and comfortable to stay as we are.
Oh, good point.
So I think that would be a really useful thing to think about in the future, maybe, when we could talk about, sometimes it's about having to step outside where we are, and that can be quite difficult to do. It can be quite a challenge too.
It's frightening, honestly. It is. But I think that's a really good suggestion for another day. But okay, well, it's been wonderful as ever to speak with you. And you know, the main message we want to, I know both of us agree on this, is the message of hope, not just for individual people, but for our planet. I want to just globalize it for a minute, is that the reason our planet is in the state of distress it's in at the moment is because most of us are living these kind of completely, you know, unilluminated lives. We are in a stuck place, not aware of our place in the world, the community that we engage with, the bigger picture, if you like. So I really think it's not just a personal quest, although that's how we've kind of been formulating it. It is actually a global one, which is why, in fact, we've set up these discussions, because we want to start this dialogue with taking more care of ourselves and taking more care of our planet as well. You know, our place in this world as a loving, interactive exchange of energy. So with that rather out there thought, I think we'll close. But thank you so much for talking, and we'll talk again, no doubt. So bye for now.